It's good to be back with you for another day of Bible study as we are continuing on in our journey through the Gospel of Mark. My name's Kevin. I have the privilege of serving as lead clergy at Christ Table. If you'd like to know more about Christ Table, who we are, what we do, right there, www.christstable.today. Sign up for the email list there. We are a ministry that is dedicated primarily to those who are on the fringes, the margins, or even outside of the church community who find themselves kind of at friction with church, with Christians. We're here for you. One of the ways in which you can continue to participate in this is not only to sign up for the email right there, but is to join us for these Bible studies. These are a way to connect yourself to other people and to continue to connect yourself to faith. You don't have to subscribe to all of the beliefs that we believe in, but we're glad to have you here. And we also love your perspective, your pushback, and your opinion as we work through these studies. Now, if you'd like to join us on this study and you've not already done so, the URL that is right there, go.christstable.today/journey. You can download a study guide for this study, a free PDF, no email, no questions asked, just hit the download. We give these things away absolutely free because we want resources in your hands and for you to have the opportunity to join us no matter your financial situation or no matter whether or not you're plugged into Christ Table or some other church. Also, if you want to financially support us, it's not a requirement, but it does help us whenever you do continue to bring these resources to you. You can give on that website that's right there, but if you go right, put it the wrong way. If you go right there to that URL, then you can click on a button that says give a box, get a box. You can download the PDF for free, but if you want a printed copy, you can purchase a box there for a nominal price that helps support our ministry. There are other things in the box to help you navigate this spiritual journey through the Gospel of Mark, and we appreciate you doing that. Now, we are working through this study. It's a Lectio Divina study. You can Google that to find out more information on what that is, how you can participate in this Bible study, because it's a little different than other Bible studies you may have participated in. Also, that study guide helps walk you through all the steps of Lectio Divina as well. And just in case, there is the right there. there's the website one more time for you to do that. Essentially, it is a journey of contemplation, and today on day 14 out of 24 days, we find ourselves in the second part of Mark chapter 9, verses 30 through 50, as we are continuing to follow Jesus from one place to the next. And as we said in the beginning, Mark is kind of full throttle fifth gear. It is all about movement in the book of Mark, moving from the very beginning of Jesus' ministry all the way to the cross and the tomb. We're glad that you are along with us for this journey. Now, what I'm doing in this is not trying to dissect all of these passages. What I'm trying to do is essentially read these passages and then see what rises up from them. For me, what I pay attention to, what God brings to mind for me. For you, it probably is going to be something completely different. And so I'm not here to explain all the historical background of these passages and all the theological nuances of these. Lots of commentaries and even our Bible studies typically tend to do that because I like all of that. But this one is simply about sitting with the text, contemplating it, and see what comes of it. So this is what I've been doing the last few days of this study, is just kind of showing you what for me comes up and letting us chew on that. And I love whenever you post in the comments or in the chat what you find and what you see in these texts. So Mark chapter 9, verse 30, the first thing that stood out to me was in the very beginning. Leaving the region, they traveled through Galilee. Jesus didn't want anyone to know he was there, for he wanted to spend more time with his disciples and teach them. And I love this because what Jesus does here is Jesus feels this tension between the people who are wanting him and the people who are needing him. Jesus had a lot of people who wanted things from him. You might even say needed things from him, miracles, to understand how to inherit the kingdom of heaven, to try to navigate the current difficult culture in which they found themselves in the first century, being torn between Roman rule, all of the cultural influx of things that were coming in, to the old ways of Judaism, and trying to maintain their family units and their dynamics and their unique religious and spiritual ways of doing things in Judaism. And so during this time, Jesus is freely giving of himself to miracles and to teachings a lot of which was needed. But it seems as though Jesus recognized that there was something that was even more needful than that: his disciples, and teaching the people who would teach and lead after him. And I think that this is really what we see going on here with Jesus. Is Jesus is training up the next generation of leaders. And I hate the word leaders, maybe teachers, maybe wise elders, whatever verbiage you want to use. It's probably better to resist verbiage that smacks of American business models, because this is certainly not what's going on in Judaism or in early Christianity. But I love that he pulls himself away from good things or great things in order to do things that only he can do for people who can only receive it directly from him, his circle of 12, his disciples. I feel this tension a lot. Maybe you feel this tension as well. People who want you versus people who need you. There, for many of us, is no end to the list of people who want something from you. Maybe the list of people who want something from you is short. Maybe there's only a few people in your close circle who want something from you, but the list of things that they want is pretty long. They're always wanting something. Those things can keep us from the better things, the more important things. I oftentimes find that I'm doing wonderful things in ministry, in teaching, and helping other people find their way, but not giving enough time or intentionality to the things that are perhaps more needful or more important. I can become distracted. Jesus here seems to intentionally avoid distraction. In fact, we see him doing that a lot and making people not very happy when he does it. Getting in a boat, going to the other side of a lake, leaving people there, running from crowds and multitudes, hiding in wildernesses, going on vacations and on holidays away from the people in the crowd who wanted and needed him. It seems as though Jesus is spending as much time trying to extract himself from people as he is spending time with people. For you, I don't know what that looks like, but for me, it was compelling, a reminder to me that it's important to disconnect in order to reconnect with the things that really matter. So kind of continuing on here, he continues in this teaching with his disciples, and he says to them some things that are very kind of distressing to them. The Son of Man is going to be betrayed into the hands of his enemies. He will be killed, but 3 days later he will rise from the dead. And I love this line. They had no idea what he was saying here. However, they were afraid to ask him what he meant. Now, we know the rest of the story because most of us understand Easter. They understand that the story of Jesus, even if you're not compelled by it, even if you don't believe it, that Jesus was killed on a cross, Good Friday. 3 days later, he's said to have risen from the dead after being in the tomb. Rah, 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 throw a party, hide Easter eggs, go have a meal. None of this has any context for them because it hasn't happened. The story's not been told. Jesus has not yet been crucified. And so this is a foreign language to them. They have absolutely no idea what's going on here. They had no understanding, the text says, of what he was saying. And I love this. They were afraid to ask what he meant. Why is that? Is there a breakdown there between Jesus and the disciples? Was it that Jesus wasn't approachable? Perhaps. The other thing, and we've talked about this a lot throughout this study, is that perhaps the disciples weren't just as smart as we give them credit for. They didn't know as much as we might immediately assume that they do. We think of them as St. Thomas. We think of them as St. Levi and Matthew. We think of them as St. Andrew. But in these moments, they're just, some of them, teenagers, or not much older than teenagers. And they are, they're afraid to ask Jesus what he means. There have been a lot of moments, I think, where I have been afraid of God. There's a saying, that oftentimes whenever angels show up, they say, "Fear not." Obviously, angels are probably terrifying apparitions to encounter unaware. But there is also this thread throughout scripture that talks about us really not fearing God. Now, and you're going to see this, there's a lot of like opposites, juxtaposition in the Bible. You're supposed to fear the Lord. That fear is a reverent, respectful fear. It's not a cowering in the corner, I'm terrified of you and what you're going to do to me kind of fear. So, yes, there is a positive fear, but there's also a fear not kind of fear, a kind of fear that you're not supposed to have with God. And yet I find myself oftentimes interacting with God in a way in which I am fearful, or even not interacting with God because I am fearful of something I have done, something that I believe, something that I am hiding, something that causes me to want to revert back to that child in a dark room who is simply trying to avoid interaction with the parent, with the authority in the room. I think that what we see in this passage here is a breakdown in the relationship between Jesus and between the disciples. And whenever that happens to me, I think that there is a breakdown somewhere in the relationship between God and me, between Jesus and me. And this is a reminder to me to be self-aware, to explore the feelings, to try to be honest with myself whenever I take an assessment as to what truly is my relationship with God. Do I truly trust Jesus? Do I truly believe that he has the best, my best in mind and is working towards that? Even on the basis of all the things I see around me, that may be something that I say. I believe that Jesus is in my corner and has my best in mind and is working for my good. But do I truly believe that? Does the heart and what I believe connect with the head and the mouth? Are those things all in tune? So the third thing, they had traveled on, and after they had arrived in Capernaum, settled in a house, Jesus asked his disciples, what were you discussing on the road? They had been arguing on the road, trying to keep Jesus from overhearing what they were saying. That never goes well. So they just don't answer, because they'd been arguing about which one of them was the greatest. And I love this because what we see in the book of Mark is we see disciples who I can relate to. We see disciples who are childish in a lot of ways, who are avoiding a lot of times, who just simply act and behave like crazy adolescents. Like I oftentimes act and behave. In church, I'll try to pretend as though I have it all together, so everything's okay, as though I know what I'm doing, but it's all oftentimes just a front for what's going on behind the scenes in the little 5-year-old, 11-year-old Kevin inside of him, who is still arguing with other people about who's the best, whose dad's the strongest, whose house is the greatest, whose toy is better. Selfish, self-centered, things that revolve around me. What did they discuss on the road? But they didn't answer because they'd been arguing about which among them were the greatest. Fear not, but also hide not. Jesus isn't going to let them hide who they are here. He knows who they are inside and out. Why hide it? Why not just be you? warts and all, difficulties and all, stupidity and all. I try so hard to do this. I try so hard to just be me. Messy, mistaken, people not going to like me, what I do, what I think, what I say, to just simply be Kevin at all times. And even though I put so much time and energy into trying to be vulnerable and trying to be transparent and trying to be authentic, even if it makes me look bad, even if it makes me look stupid, I gotta say, I still find myself often hiding, especially with God, who knows everything anyway. Who am I kidding? Who am I making feel better here? You know who I'm making feel better here? I'm making me feel better here. And that's something that I probably need to put some work into. So those are the things that stood out to me today. I'm looking forward to hearing in the chat or in the comments or on private message the things that stood out to you, that came out to you in this passage as you walk through Lectio Divina. It's been great to be with you today. Looking forward to being back with you again tomorrow. If you want to download the study guide or join us on this journey, there it is right there, go.christstable.today/journey. We look forward to having you here again as we continue this tomorrow. But until that time,